Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man podcast. My name's Rory Paquette, and I know you know that, folks. But you know what? I just like to remind myself about how grateful I am to be sitting in this chair, doing what I'm doing, and bringing all this to you. Folks, when we made the move to 7 days a week, I thought I was nuts. And a lot of other people I thought were going to think I was nuts, but you guys didn't. You showed up. You came through. You've been sharing. You've been liking. You've been subscribing. That's why we're putting content out 7 days a week, and that's why our podcast is growing the way it has. You folks are amazing. And if you're not out there doing what you're doing, I can't sit here and do what I'm doing. So my promise to you is to keep bringing powerful men on here, like the gentleman I have today, to keep bringing these powerful messages to you because I want to give you a reason to keep showing up other than the fact that, you're just gracious and you like me as much as I like you. So let's just keep this moving. All right. If you're a friend of the program, and I know you are, well, it's time to take a sip of my preferred beverage. Ooh, good stuff right there, guys. Just made it super hot, ready to go. And if you're a friend of the program, you know what we're drinking. It's Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up, check them out. They do all the right things for all the right reasons. And man, they support veterans, which is one of the biggest reasons why we support them. This cup of Joe is fantastic. It's deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful, just like my wife. Like I said, they absolutely support veterans. Folks, if you're a veteran out there, I want to make sure that we at the Power Man thank you and your family for your sacrifice and for letting us enjoy our freedoms that we have today to be able to come on here and say what we need to say in support of you and the causes that we champion. Uh, I love you, and I'm glad you found a home with us. Freedom Hill Coffee, folks, at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up, check them out. One more sip so I can keep up with this dynamo on the other side of the table from me. All right, here we go. Please welcome to the show. He's a motivational speaker. He's a ministry leader. He's a coach. He's a three-time author. He has written the books Awaken the Baller Within, I Am More Than Enough, and his most recent book, Now What? 5 Steps to Get Up and Create the Most of Life. Folks, I cannot wait to have this conversation. Please welcome to the show, Ahmard Vital. Ahmard, how you doing, brother?
I'm great, Roy. Thank you for having me on, man.
I really, really appreciate you coming on. I tell you what, we had a conversation in our quick pre-interview. We could have talked for an hour before we even hit record, and I was like, "Man, we got to hit record because this is the stuff." Um, Brother, tell everybody who is Ahmad. Just give them a brief idea of who you are, where you come from, what your background is, and we will launch into all the rest. Go for it.
Well, first of all, thank you for the introduction. Thank you for your gracious opportunity to be part of your show, man. And shout out to all your people who are listening right now, and for all those veterans. Love you guys as well. Man, it's who am I is a complicated question that can be asked 7 days a week, and you might get a different answer each time. But I just look at myself as a young man from a small town in Texas, man, who had a pen in his hand and a dream. I've been writing probably since the age of 8. Wrote my first book at 11. Was working for for community newspapers by the time I was 14 years old. Went to college, majored in journalism, was the editor of my high school newspaper. Um, Came out, went worked at one of the largest community newspapers in Texas as soon as I came out. So, whereas I'm a speaker, I'm a coach, I'm a ministry leader, and all those other things, but at the core, I feel like the greatest gift God ever gave me outside of the Word of God is my pen, and I've utilized it my entire life. My greatest way of expression is through the pen. And so writing is going to be the foundation for me. Yes, it's brought on many other opportunities. After I wrote my book, Awaken the Baller Within, I asked my mentor at the time, I was like, hey, I wrote this book. What do I do? And he's like, well, if you want to sell books, you go speak. I'm like, oh, okay. How about we try that out? And so I jumped in, and the first coach whom I approached, he bought 80 copies of my book. And I said, I'll come speak to your team too. And so that's kind of just launched my keynote career. Um, and then my first paid speaking opportunity was at a small town in East Texas at a football camp that was supposed to have hundreds of people there. Come to find out, when I pull up on the way, there were two middle school kids on a park bench in Tyler, Texas. And I remember the gentleman, the coach, paid me $300, and you swear like that was the greatest thing that could have ever happened to me. And then really, if you look at it, when you talk about blessings, it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, because I'm sitting there and there's more coaches and parents surrounding these two young men on a park bench. But if you would have told me that the way my speaking career would get kicked off was talking to two introvert middle school football players on a park bench, that would lead to me speaking in multiple countries and speaking at multiple universities, multiple high schools, several states, few countries, and I've coached people from, not only within the states but all over the world. If you'd have told me that it would have started with a $300 check in in East Texas, I wouldn't have believed it. But the bottom line is that was the launching point for who you see today. And I look back at that moment as one of the greatest moments that could have ever happened. Why? Because I was entrusted with something what seemed small when it ended up being so large. And I think that that's a bigger way to go into life when we look at different things and say, oh, well, I'm not going to do that because that doesn't fit this, and this. And it's just like, is there somebody you can pour into? Is there an opportunity to maybe change a life? Because I mean, I believe that we're supposed to look for the one, right? Not 20,000. It's great to speak to 20,000, but we're looking to touch one at a time. And so that's always kind of stuck in my mind as I go into different events and people say, we're sorry, we can't guarantee there's going to be this many people. And I'm just like, there's one, there's one I'm speaking to. And so I kind of lean on that as I go into many events today.
I mean, there's 100 ways you could have started. That was brilliant. That way right there. I love that. Absolutely love that. That is how we founded this podcast, man. I mean, that's how I founded this whole movement that I've been working on. If I can help one guy. And so when somebody comes on here and the first thing out of their mouth is, I want to help one guy. Instant credibility in my world, man. I love that you started that way. All right. So you are using the pen, which in your world is definitely mightier than the sword. You started, was this the first book you had ever done or the first one that's been released that you're talking about, Awaken the Baller Within? That was back in 2011.
Yeah, Awaken the Baller Within was my first published book. My first actual book was when I was 11 as part of a contest for uh, something we were doing in elementary school, and I had a vivid imagination back then. This was probably before I was really diving deep into sports. I mean, I've been an athlete since I was like 9 years old, but my first book was the Boogeyman Adventures, um, and I think I was in like fifth grade or something like that. And my teacher wanted to put it in a middle school contest, and me being an idiot was like, no, I don't need to do that. When who knows what would happen from there. But no, Waking the Baller Within was all my books came out of tragedy for the most part. As I think about it, Awaken the Baller Within, I was working with Fox Sports as a recruiting analyst. I was a Texas recruiting analyst, and so everybody wants athletes from Texas. So basically, I was covering sports in every state because every state wants Texas athletes.
Right.
And so I'm doing the recruiting work with them, writing about where these guys are going, where they're visiting, and things of that nature. But at the same time, I had a real meltdown in my life. I finally found a relationship that I thought was going to work for me. I had just bought the house by which I'm still in right now. And I just remember, like, okay, Ahmad, you're going to do things right. You're not going to go out and do what you want to do. You're going to focus on this young lady, and we're going to make this happen. And a week or two after I moved into this house, she broke up with me out of nowhere. No, no explanation. Just, hey, this is over. I'm just like, can we talk about this? Nope. Click. And like, I went to a total meltdown, man. I really did because it's like, wait a minute. The first time I actually take a relationship serious, and they leave. Like, I'm like, God, what are you doing? I thought we kind of had an agreement with this. And so I just remember going into like a full depressive mode. First time I'd ever like really fully been depressed. And then I remember just sitting in my secondary bedroom and I just sat there one day and I was just like, man, I don't even know if I care about anything right now. And I said, all right, God, check this out. I don't know what I'm doing. I'll tell you what, if you wake me up tomorrow, I'll do things differently and I'll move in a different way according to your will and not my own. Of course, he did wake me up. And so I found a mentor, I found a spiritual advisor. I started reading the books we're supposed to read as business people, Think and Grow Rich,
Mm,
Inspired
right.
Destiny, Who Moved My Cheese, all the the top 10, you right?
Yep.
What I'm saying? The
Love them.
Power Within, all the books, all those books. And obviously at the same time, I started reading the Bible and someone was teaching me how to read the Bible as well. And so here it is, I'm a sports guy, but I'm also kind of on the Napoleon Hill tip a little bit. And I was trying to find a way to marry the two of them. And so Awaken the Baller Within is basically written in the same mold that Napoleon Hill did with Think and Grow Rich. How do you make Think and Grow Rich? He went out and spoke to all of these successful millionaire people and found out the mindset of what makes them successful. I did the same thing. I just did it with football players. I did it with guys who were going to play at major Division One colleges and say, hey, what are you thinking about in the locker room before you hit the field? How do you practice? I seen you throw the touchdowns. I see you make tackles. I see you are being very successful. You're 4 or 5, 3-star athlete, going to play in major Division One schools. But I want to know what led you to be able to do what you do in an effective way. And so I remember the first athlete I talked to is a young man named Russell Shepard. He was a 5-star athlete, played at LSU, played for the Giants, the Seahawks, not the Seahawks, the Buccaneers. Guys, he went to about 4 or 5 different teams, and he was a very successful guy. And I remember coming
Wow.
home after his first semester at LSU. I interviewed him in his bedroom right during Christmas break. And I had all these questions laid out about how you think about leadership, how you think about, um, uh, you know, serving your fellow student athletes and things of that nature. And we're going through this whole questionnaire. And the interview went so well, I was like, maybe I should do this again. And so I did that almost 100 times to different athletes, put Awaken the Baller Within together, and I made it in a way that's written in quarters. First quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. There's no chapter more than like 12 pages. It's large print. I wrote it for guys who didn't like to read because in high school I didn't like to read. So I wanted to make a book to where if they wanted to read it during halftime, it would work out. But what ended up happening, Roy, was so amazing. People knew me from the sports world. And so I would tell them about the book and they was like, hey, we want to buy one. And so what I would do is they would buy it and I'd mail it to them. Well, the book would come in while their kids are in school. The parents would open it up and was just like, Ahmad, this book isn't about sports. I know. Sports is just the metaphor. It's written in sports language, but it's a mental book, right? It's about getting your mind. And so and one guy was like, man, this makes you a better realtor, a better lawyer, a better parent, a better this and better that. So what was happening is the parents were reading it, and again, remember, it's short, so they're running through the whole book within a day. And when their kids come home and be like, you better read this. And so I was very successful selling that, even out of my trunk 40 copies here, 25 copies here, 80 copies here. And so that book kind of like the foundation of where I was going from a lot from a spiritual standpoint because I was taking my love of sports and bringing spirituality and mental performance and putting it all together in one place. And that's really kind of been the foundation of me going forward, even though I've kind of stepped away from sports more in recent years and dove more into the ministry side of things. But like all these roller coasters, man, have just been amazing in my life. I mean, it's tearing me mentally apart because, when you start, when God is using you to take you into another season, that's not exactly a smooth riding process. It's usually, some valley moments. And so I've had many of those, but Awaken the Baller Within was a strong foundation for me.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds like that kind of launched all the rest of what you were doing and
Mhm.
set a new direction for you.
It did. It
Very
did. And
cool.
sports is always going to be close to my heart. Um, you know, Me and the Dave Campbell's football guys, I mean, most of those guys are still my colleagues. And, you know, I don't mean to go from the to a negative side thing, but you know how they say with the mob, you just never get out. That's how it is with me with sports writing. I'm never going to leave that. Like
Right.
that's always going to be my core, and people are always going to be like, "Oh, that's that guy who was at all the football games." Yes, that's me. Haven't been to games in a while, but the second it's time, I'll go right back into it, and I won't skip a beat.
Right on. Right on. The second book then, which obviously gets, it comes to life because of everything you did with the first. I Am More Than Enough, which was 2019. Now that's you can go anywhere with that title. So, tell everybody a little bit, what's that book about? What brought that one around?
Well, I was at a different place in life. I delved into a spirituality that I'm no longer part of, but I still did have a pretty firm foundation. Um, the Bible's never left me, but I have had some times when I strayed away, and that was kind of when I was kind of in the thoughts or things. You remember The Secret had just kind of come out around that time, and it was kind of that whole movement. And I'll be honest with you, people, I got kind of caught up in that. I was like, well, this sounds kind of cool. I'm not disrespecting the word by this, and even though there's some things that probably I've had to repent over from that as well. But the I'm more than enough was the idea that like who you see in the mirror. What are you going to do with that? Like, this person in the mirror is responsible for everything. And so I am more than enough was based on the night that my father died the night after my 33rd birthday. And I didn't even know he was sick. Like, it just was a phone call, voicemails from my mother screaming and my dad dying. And I'll be honest, I was so spiritually arrogant that I was just like, well, I know who God created me to be, and God says that what I ask for in his name is done. So I'm driving to the hospital, like, yeah, we got this, gonna walk in there, dad's gonna wake up, come back in the game, and we're gonna have a conversation. Because what was key about that was Awaken the Baller Within was just published. And my publisher had just sent me the author copies. So I had 10 hardback copies. So what my plan was is the books that came in that week, that Saturday, I was going to take my dad's copy. We were going to have that father son moment in the backyard, maybe have a couple of cold ones, and we're going to talk about the book. That was the plan. Well, he died Wednesday night
Oh,
before I could have the Wednesday situation. And so I am more than enough was the conversation when I got to the hospital, and I had asked God to make sure that my father walks out of this hospital. And obviously, when I got there, the nurse was like, he has about a 3% chance of living. And I was so spiritually arrogant that I'm like, 3%, my God can work with less. So let's make it's gonna happen.
right.
Well, hours later, the nurse is just saying like this isn't looking too well. And I remember walking in to go see him, and I stood next to him, and it was the first time that my heart had dropped because I couldn't sense that my father saw or knew that my presence was there with him. And that crushed me because now the reality of life and death is hitting me in real time. And this is the first time I'm seeing it in front of me
Yeah.
like this. And I just remember sitting there, and they were just like, the machine is the only thing keeping him alive. And my mother came to me and was like, Ahmad, I don't know what to do. And I said, this is what I know for sure. Our father is a strong man, a man who stands for something. And what he would not want is to be left alive by a machine. I told the nurse, I was like, you pull the plug and let my father live the way he would have wanted it to. If it's meant for him to be here, he'll make it through. If it's God's will to take him home, I'm willing to endure that. And 4.5 hours later, around just around five before 5 o'clock, he breathed his last breath, flatline. Whole family's just distraught. We're circled around his bed. It's a mess in there. And I just remember going outside and I was screaming and crying to God. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Did you not hear everything I just said? I said, I prayed on the way here. I put this in your hands. I asked you, I said, the only thing I wanted you to do is make sure my father walks out of this hospital. And you couldn't even do that. And I just remember, like, in the turmoil of me screaming at my father, Heavenly Father, I just remember just a calmness came through, and the voice, the still small voice spoke to me and was just like, I have given you all that you asked for, and your father will walk out of this hospital, but he will walk out of this hospital as you. He has given you all the values. He's given you the work ethic. He's given you the integrity. He's given you everything you need. Now go and represent your heavenly father and your earthly father in a way and basically like shut up and get to work. And I just remember it hit me. And he basically said, you know, you were good from the start and you are more than enough. And so because my thing was is that my father was my moral barometer. I had just started business. Anytime I had a question, he was retired, so I could call him at 8 at night, you know, 12 in the afternoon. It didn't matter. He's picking the phone up, and I could run different things that were going on in my business. Those decisions where that it's probably the right thing to do, but maybe it's a little on the fringes, and my dad could help me sift through the morality of going through it with a particular deal because my father used to always say, if both parties aren't walking away satisfied, don't do the deal, son. That
Wow.
was the kind of stuff he would give to me. And I'm like, well, what the heck am I supposed to do if he's not here? So now it's all on me to take on what he put into me from a morality standpoint. And I was just like, God, I'm not enough for this. I can't do this. And God was like, well, you better figure it out. and use me in that spot. And so I'm More Than Enough was built on that night alone because it was like image is everything and just accepting who you are and making the changes and making those mindful changes to be able to do things. It's all about who's in the mirror. No one else to blame, no one else to point the finger at. It's all you. It's all about you tapping into your father to be able to get you what you need to be able to move through this. And you are more than enough. And so that all kind of just was packaged up uh, with that moment. And it came from a tragedy. It came from death. But now typically when I speak on this, I tell people that my father passing was the greatest blessing that could have ever happened to me because I probably would have still been in a state of arrogance. I still would have been in a state of I'm gonna lean on him for whatever I need. I'm not gonna actually take that next step of adult growth that I needed. My father leaving made me gain 10 years of wisdom in 4 hours. And it was worth it. And so my father passing was a blessing. And I think that, it was God's will for him to leave in that way to bring me to the place now where not only do I see death differently, I see my father's differently. I see life differently. I see morality differently because it took that 5, 10 hour moment to just crush every misconception that everything that I thought to be true was just completely false. And it made me lean in the word more. And it just made me overall a better person. And so I'm grateful that he's no longer here and that he left me a legacy that I get to carry on um, as I move forward.
Well, first, let me just say I'm sorry for your loss, completely. But that's as a father who's an empty nester. I can tell you that that is the mark of a good man that you had there. On his way out, he made sure that he delivered the biggest lesson of all to you, and that's just really, really amazing, man. It really is.
Thank you.
Yeah, very, very cool. The book then on More Than Enough is this your journey to sort of realizing that you are in fact more than enough? Is it helping other people realize that? Just what's the framework?
Well, this book obviously came out in 2023. I started writing it in 2020. Most of us were around. There was a few things happening in 2020. I don't know what was happening on y'all,
One or two
but
things maybe.
just a few things, just globally some things were going on. But no, man, I was driving on one of our tollways out here in Houston, and I just remember just hearing all the bickering that went with 2020. Because see, 2020 wasn't about a virus. It wasn't about you know political strife and all this other nonsense. All that was just distraction. That was a spiritual attack at one of the highest levels, almost like kind of what's going on now. But back then, like it was just kind of new and it was global. And I just remember, this group of people screaming at this people, and you owe us for this and owe us for that. And it's just like because there's a strong flu out there, now all of a sudden we're supposed to change everything to accommodate to you. And I just remember hearing so many excuses, right? Just like, well, you owe us this, and it's the day of reckoning. Reckoning from what? And I just remember it was just a bunch of people screaming about haves and have nots. And it's just like, can you just get up and go to work and shut your mouth, please? And so I remember just sitting there and I wrote the outline for now what on the tollway on my way to work
Yeah.
and was just I wrote down all the chapters and I was just like, God, I'm just so tired of a number of people blaming everybody else for their where they are in life. Nobody owes you anything. And so now what? And obviously I work in youth ministry.
Mhm.
So I'm working with the demographic of basically, well, I mean, at our church it starts at around 12 or 13 because we middle school all the way through high school. But my demographic's usually somewhere between 17 and 28. So I work with young adults or whatever. And I just started seeing that, that's when I started hearing about gap years and I was like, what is a gap year? It's like, well, you graduate from high school and then you just kind of have a year, where you just have a gap. I was like, and what are you doing? Well, we just kind of, just kind of do what we want and just have a little bit of a break. From what? And I just remember with the
Right.
stuff that was happening in 2020, hearing that and all that, and I was just like, okay, enough, right? My young brothers and sisters, we got to get it together. And you and I spoke like I'm a huge advocate for young men because I understand the young men. There's no safety net for you, young brother. There's not one. Okay, you fall, you fail, you're gonna be on the street, and nobody's going to care. That's just the facts. You see a homeless man on the side of the road, it's background noise. You see a homeless woman on the side of the road, and you're just like, oh my God, what happened? Right? But the guy, whatever, keep it moving. Right? You might give him a quarter, you may give him nothing. Right? But the bottom line is that now what basically took the profile of all the worst case scenarios I've dealt with in my coaching profession. Because I had a guy I've known for some years now, and he was telling me his story, and I was trying to coach him through it, and it was like everywhere we went, there was a roadblock. Well, I can't do this because of this. Yeah, but what about this? Well, this. What about this? Well, this. And it's just like, God, I've been doing, I've been coaching all my life, and I was like, I've never been to where it's like, okay, I don't know what the answer is no more. And so when I went through and did now what, I was trying to say, okay, here's the worst case scenario. How do I get someone out of the worst case scenario and back into the game of life? And I was like, there's 5 steps. Reflect. Well, how did we get here? That's number one. Okay. How did we get here? Because whatever got us here, how about we stop doing that? You know? And so it's a reflect stage where it's really kind of that hard, dirty looking at what you've done and taking responsibility for all of it. Because a lot of people say, well, what if their parents failed them? Okay. So what? Whose life who's the recipient of it? Who's in the mirror? Okay. So your dad's on crack and your mom's in jail. That sucks. It does. But you are here and still have to live life. So, and that's where I have a chapter in there called "It's Not Your Fault, but It Is Your Problem." Meaning you didn't cause it. You actually did nothing. You had no participation in it other than you're here. But it's your deal. And I use the example of when my father, when we were living in the house, and you remember the days when you used to put your trash on the side of the road, not these little beautiful cans that nothing can get into.
Right.
We put your trash on the side of the road, and it would be just the bags.
Yep.
Well, what gets into the bags? Dogs,
Yeah.
spoons. And so here's the deal. My father obviously taught me early on, we would get the big steel trash cans, put the trash in there, and then the trash man would come get it. Well, our neighbors wasn't so kind to doing so. So they would put their bags out. So the dogs would come get that. And what would happen is the dogs would drag their trash into our yard. So when I woke up the next morning, I was just like, my dad was like, go clean the front yard. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like, we did the right thing. He's like, well, there's stuff out there. And I'm like, well, that's not our fault, but it's your problem because it's your yard.
Right.
You weren't the cause of the problem, but it is you're the end result of someone else's misfortune. And so I use that analogy all the time. It's like, so you're gonna not clean it up and stand up for the fact that that's not my trash, but that's your yard, right? And
Right.
so if you compare that to life, you're like, yeah, some people's parents aren't so awesome. Sorry, right? That's not, you don't get to choose your folks. As you get older, you can choose who your family and your friend group and whoever you want to roll with is. But your parents are your parents. And if they failed you, sorry, but you have to fix it. And so that reflection stage goes a heavy, heavy, heavy on that. The idea that, like, where you are is all on you. Period. End of story. Then we go into the decide chapter after you reflect on how there's a pile of clothes in your living room and there's a fire in the kitchen and you don't know why. Then you go into decide, okay, your life is not so awesome. What do you want to do? And so that's when we kind of choose through, hey, you know, I have the ability to do this. I have the resources to do this. I don't have the resources to do this. I know somebody who does this. And so you decide. And then, of course, you go into the planning, where it's where you kind of put the mind maps together. It's like, okay, if I want to do this, here's the steps to do this. And so you start kind of, putting things around there. That's kind of when get some other people who's in the profession to kind of help you through that. And then you act, you know. And you know as well as I do, you run a podcast, you probably run businesses before. That marketing plan, that business plan, how many times have you had to scrap it? Because everything you put on there, 90% of it didn't work, so you had to go try something else because everything that you thought was awesome wasn't. And so in real time, you're just like, well, that wasn't a good idea. Well, you worked on it for a year. Who cares? Start over, right? And it's just what it
Right.
is. But taking action means that all these little moving parts are happening. You got to figure it out in real time. And then my last, and I think my most important chapter of all of them is to seek. COVID and the last two generations have really got into this, going into your bubble, going into your hiding place, and you figure it out. And it's just like, no, you don't. There's strength and there's love in reaching out to others and allowing them to help you and allowing them to bless you. But we've gotten so caught up in it's just like, this is all me. No, nothing is all you. You're not successful by yourself. Whatever you did before you were doing podcasting, you didn't do it alone, right? You had people above you and you had people below you and you had people who loved and supported you. But we've kind of gotten out of that in this, in this sit in your little pods like they do out in Cali, like, hey, here's your little pod and you stay in there and you read your books and you don't come out and you keep everything to yourself. And it's just like, yeah, how's that working out for y'all? It's not, right? And we just have this kind of I do stuff on my own that just doesn't work. And so I suggest in the Seek chapter to find three people, especially for my guys, right? I think that you need to find someone like you need to be an apprentice for somebody. Go submit to someone, right? Go honor someone who knows what they're doing and being able to help you, right? And then I think you need kind of like a almost like someone who's probably 10 or so years older than you, so they're in the workforce. They've went through that first and second step, but now they're kind of that middle ground, so you kind of can confide in them as like a mentor type, right? They're probably like 3 or 4, like 10 years 15 years older than you, but they're not like old school, so they're kind of in that 30 to 45 range that you need, right? They got some old school values, but they're still young enough to understand, how this social media thing works. And then I think the last person you need is what I like to call the patriarch, the papa, the old school, gray hair, 70 plus, 60 plus guy, the guy who has more wisdom, but not anything formal, just he just knows life. He's, when you go to the family reunion, everybody got to go see Papa, the patriarch, the head guy over the whole family who holds things down. And I just think that when you can get wisdom from one or two generations above you, it just dissolves all this modern nonsense that's going on. And they just know the straight facts. They're straight to the point. They have the wisdom that's of the ages that more than likely came out of the Word of God and not out of some weird, goofy self-help book from, 2020, right? They got that old school, beautiful knowledge of, hey, like my father, one of my father's greatest quotes is, you know, how do you become wealthy? Spend less than you make. That's
Right.
it.
There you
No,
go.
yeah, no S&P, no index fund, no Roth, none of that. Just if you have $1, spend 80 cents and you got 20 left. That's it. It's really just that basic. And so you need someone who's just going to be so direct and in that way. And I think that these young men need those type of mentors and those kind of levels of leadership in their lives. And I think that it'll change a whole lot of things.
I love that. I mean, the stuff you're talking about right now is almost revolutionary these days. When you say, you know, step up and take care of yourself, I mean, you're you're alienating a lot of people. There's a lot of people who are hurting having to hear that right now, because you're
Oh
invading their
yeah.
safe space. But
Well, tell them you're welcome. I didn't give a trigger warning because I don't believe in that nonsense. There's no safe spaces.
right.
Life is difficult. Life is hard. And we have to
Yeah.
endure it, especially to my young guys, especially to my young guys, because and I hope I'm not going off track here, but with young men, there is no path in life where you're not a leader. That's not an option for you. There is no path in life where you are not a leader. To my ladies, I went to school with a lot of young ladies, right? They go and they got their little marketing degree or whatever. Junior year, they find Chad. and they start dating, year or two outside of college, they get married. She's a stay-at-home wife. It's beautiful because that's a beautiful thing to do. Tell me a path where a man can do that same thing. It
For sure.
doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist.
There's no one, there's no guy who goes to school to major in engineering and he meets, you know, Paris Hilton and she retires him and he sits at home and takes care of the kids. That just does. I've not seen it. Maybe it's happened. I sure as heck haven't seen it. So I say that from the standpoint that men are born leaders. That's not optional. It's just not. You have to lead in your job, you have to lead in your family, you have to lead in your church, you have to lead in your community. You just have to lead in life. And there's no option with that. And so I tend to treat my young men 2 to 3 years higher than what they are. If they're 15, I'm going to treat you like you're 18. If you're 18, I'm going to treat you like you're a young adult. If you're a young adult, I'm going to treat you like you're a grown man. Why? Because life moves so fast for us that you need to be prepared and ready for that next step because the next step is coming right now. And so many guys are just ill prepared to just go get job interviews, to know how to sit down and talk with adults, to know yes sir, no sir, and these just little basic things that like my father drummed into me by the time I was 7 or 8 years old. I mean, he would check me in real time. If I said yeah to an adult, he was like, I think you meant to say yes sir to him. You know how embarrassing that is? You're like 8 years old and your dad's checking you in front of the whole group. But what it does is it set a solid foundation into me to where you're always honoring and respecting those who are above you. And you honor and respect those who are around you, who are pouring into you and giving you something. And so that's where my intensity to my young guys go to because I want my young men to be awesome. I want all of them to be awesome fathers and husbands and go out and earn the most that they can in doing what they do. Long as it's, I don't care what it is, as long as it's honorable. Long as you're exchanging goods and services for an exchange and resources, I don't really care what you do. As long as it's legal, as long as it's honorable, and the other person is getting fair market value for what you provide for them. That's all I ask for. And
Nice.
so that's that's kind of been my thing for a while now. And so I'm leaning in heavily on that because I don't want any more weak men out here in these streets. Tired of it, right? I want guys to stand up, let their chest hang, get beat up, get your teeth knocked out, roll your ankle, sprain the knee. I don't care. I just want you to stand for something. Anything. This gonna be moral and righteous and it's gonna make life better for other people. Because we're supposed to protect this thing. We build the world, man. Every road, every bridge, every sign put up, every house that goes around here. We're building these things. And you know what? We're running out of some of those guys who are willing to do that kind of work. So we need a revival not only of the Christian faith, but we need a revival of our young men to come into the game and be like, yeah, I'm ready to fight. Let's do this. And we've lost some of that because society has just lied to our young men for so long. And guys like us are a problem because we're telling them like, this is not how this works. Get off of that internet and stop listening to these idiots who are telling you about this soft life nonsense. I don't even know what that means. It just sounds wrong, you know, whatever that is, you know. Yeah, and Roy, you can understand where I'm coming from with this. I'm not saying that men don't need to tap into their feelings or some at some point. But what you cannot do is make decisions based on your feelings. We have to look at things in spite of our feelings and say, this is not going to feel good, but it's what needs to be done. And I'm going to endure hardness. As Paul said, I'm going to endure hardness as a good soldier because I know I'm standing up for something that's truthful, even though it's not advantageous. It doesn't feel good. Sorry, fellas. Life is not meant for us to feel good. There's nowhere in the word where it's like, yeah, if you do this, life is going to be easy. Life is never going to be easy for us because every day we go out and fight. Every day we go out and endure. Every day we go out and put our bodies on the line, our minds on the lives, and all of these different things to make sure what? That the least of these, that are the vulnerable people, the ones we're supposed to be looking out for, elderly, women, children, and those who are poor and need assistance. We are here to fight for them every day. And if we're not doing that, then what the heck are we doing with our lives? If you're not standing on that kind of business, we need to reset and get back into where we know what our rightful place is in society. And we've lost some of that. And hopefully, guys like you and myself, we can bring this back because it's needed right now.
Amen, man. Wow. I mean, talk
I
about
know,
bringing the fire.
I know. I went off on one. That happens sometimes.
Woo. All right.
I hope your audience is not like, what in the heck is going on with that
Oh
guy?
no, no, you're preaching to the choir with my own. They're cheering in their cars right now, man. I mean, they're beating on their steering wheels while they're driving because these are the people that you know they believe what you're saying and they love hearing what you're saying. I want to piggyback on that for a minute. I love that you went here with it. I really do because our young people have been in crisis for a long time. I'm with you on every single thing you just said. But I don't let us off the hook. You know what I mean? For sure. And I know you don't either. There is a huge movement of young lions that have had enough. They are done with what 2020 tried to shove down their throats. They are stepping up. They are, really learning their faith. They're stepping into their faith. And I really think that they're building, honestly, an army of God that is going to be really ferocious. And the thing that really is still missing is, the older lion that's going to help them get through the wall. They need the older lion that's going to like go through the wall first and show them what to do with all of this attitude and bluster and dedication that they have. And I think that that's a huge place where we're lacking. So I got to ask you, what's your message to the older guys? What's your message to the fathers and the husbands out there that are the are supposed to be the leaders of these young lions to get them to step up? And a lot of them are listening.
Mm.
So,
Well, unfortunately, you have. I haven't been at this level for too long. Um, I'm definitely a prodigal. I've been all over the place, religiously, spiritually, or whatever. But the interesting thing was is that almost like the Apostle Paul, he was very good at what he was doing before he got delivered. Very good, very intent. Hey, I'm on my way. Get them ready. I'm finna come down there and handle all of that. And then boom, why are you persecuting me? And then everything changed. So in college, I turned up. In college, I was throwing the best parties ever. I can drink and smoke with the best of them. I was the guy who could put together awesome parties and do it well. Worked in bars, late night, all that, doing whatever I wanted, right? And then about COVID time, my awakening happened. I left the church I was with for 12 years, working with the youth there. And I found a hardcore Bible-based church that is unapologetic. And I remember sitting in there and I was like, whoa, these guys stand on business. They stand on the word and they don't back away. And it was like our pastor was one of the ones during COVID. It was like they did drive-in church for like 2, 3 weeks and like, forget this. We're opening the doors of the church. You can't open the doors of the church. Then come stop us. He was that guy, right? Like told the city, hey, come through. And what ended up happening? We had cops who were working security there, so meaning they not coming to go shut it down. So what I would say to my fellas out there is it's like it's your children, the ones who are coming out of high school and who are in college, the revival is coming through them. Period in the story. It's already been known and it's stated. We're seeing what's going on college campuses. We obviously saw what happened here recently or whatever, but we also already starting to see a tip of what's happening after that. And what happened to Brother Kirk, it's just amplified everything. It just put fire on an already inferno, right? But what you're saying is what is our role? What I believe, and I think you and I are probably in the same generation. I'm Generation X. I'm like a young Gen Xer, right? What in my conversations with God, this is what I as God on my behalf, it's like God, fill me up every morning. I wake up, I have the same routine every morning. Wake up, make my bed up, pull out my Bible, pull out my Bible pen, pull out my pen, take my phone, take it to the other room into my kitchen, go in there, close the door, get on my knees and pray, and then I read my Bible plan for the day. That's what I do every morning like clockwork. What I ask of God, and I hope your audience does this as well, and I hope that they have a daily Bible plan. I hope they're praying and doing their Bible work every day, because I can tell you right now, you step outside without the covering, you step outside without the armor, and you are going to get destroyed. That I know for sure, because I've tried it my way, and my way is terrible. His ways are better, and his ways are higher. That's number one. Number two, I ask God and say, I see the anointing on the future generations. I said, but I'll tell you what I'll do. You fill me up every morning with your grace, your love, your mercy, your focus, whatever is needed. You fill me up every morning. When I go in there and I meet with my teenagers, and I go in there and I meet with young people, and I go out therefore as you've called for me to do, I will pour all of it out every day. And if it means I gotta crawl back to my house because I have no more left in me, I will do that. When I work with my teens on Sundays and Wednesdays, and of course some other days when we have events, I don't leave, like they say in sports, leave it all on the field. That's what I do because I'm still a jock. I'm just a jock who has a Bible in his hand, right? And so I'm going out there, and when my teens come up to me, and Roy, they're bringing issues we hadn't even thought of when we were kids, right? Some of the things that are hearing, some of these testimonies, you just like, okay, Lord,
Oh
we're
yeah.
here right now.
Oh yeah.
Um, Whatever you got, you need to pour it like right now because this kid is right in front of me, and I got to pray for him in the next 7 seconds. But what we have to do is be willing to pour out not only for the youth in our homes, but for the youth we connect with outside of these walls. And yes, we need more men in youth ministry. That's what we need. Right? We need, and I know that because like when I joined, they were just like, yeah, it's not a lot of guys who do this. And I'm like, I don't know a lot about the inner workings of church. So I'd always kind of thought that that was just a natural progression with me working in sports writing with, high school and college level kids. But we got to get off the sidelines and into the game. We have to equip ourselves to go pour out to them and empty the cup every day for them because they're going to be the ones who are going to undo all the stuff from the boomer generation, from Woodstock, from first, second, third wave feminism, from all of these different movements to from the idiotic war on drugs, war on poverty, uh, racial essentialism, CRT, DEI, whatever the nonsense of the day is. This completely unbiblical. We got to be the ones who stand in there and be like, enough of this, okay? Right? We don't need all this. We don't need, like you said, we don't need the trigger warnings, the safe spaces, and my feelings. Dude, screw your feelings, man. Let's stand up and do something, right? Do it afraid. Do it in the midst of all the opposition that comes your way. Do you know I got canceled by eBay? I don't even know why. I cannot purchase on eBay ever again. I got banned. I don't know. That was the year I think I did 80 something podcasts. Maybe I said something that made somebody from eBay mad. Because when I called eBay and said, hey, what did I do? Oh, it was so bad we can't even tell you. I'm like, what? Well, if we do it, then we know you'll come back. We sign you back on and you'll do it again. I'm like, I have no clue. I got canceled from a company. They said I offended them because I was just like, hey, in sales, we got to go after it and go get it. I love, crazy baseball guy who goes out there and was like, I'm going to do this thing. And they were just like, no, canceled my whole contract,
Wow.
travel expenses, everything. Yeah. So I was just like, dang, I didn't know I was at the cancelable stage, but maybe I'm there and I'm here now. Still haven't recovered from that. I'm still a little, I'm forgiven, but I'm still slightly salty about it because it was the first time that it had ever happened to me. But to my fellows out there, yes, it's kind of on us because the young people are being attacked by the lies of the enemy in so many different ways. They're telling them that they're in the wrong body. They're telling them that they're not enough. They're telling them that they need to follow the women, which none of these young people know what the heck they're doing for the most part. They all need to be reared because I mean, what where the guys are basically told to, tuck everything in and don't go out there and do what you need to do. They're telling the ladies that there's liberation and going out and having 10, 12, 15 partners before they leave high school, right? They're telling them that that's empowering. It's just like, no, you're not built for that. And they talk about mental health all the time. It's just like, yeah, because typically, like, this is the temple, and when you allow too many people to just enter into you in a very derogatory and sexual nature, it's gonna have downstream effects, right? Have we I'm gonna say something and hopefully this doesn't get you flagged, but have we ever seen a happy porn star who's like I love my life?
No.
I've not seen one yet. They're mostly all depressed. Some of them are no longer here, right? Because that's not part of your purpose.
Yeah.
Just like men not working. That's not natural. We need our young men to go to work. That's what you do. I don't care what you do as long as it's honorable and it's a somewhat good living, okay? So you're broke, but you're still putting in the work. And so we need to push our young men to get out of their caves and get into the streets, go touch grass, go meet with people, go serve people. Why don't we make our sons go do 3 to 4 hours a week? Okay, 3 or 4 hours a month. We'll start there and go volunteer somewhere. Goodwill, Salvation Army,
Right.
the local church. Go feed some homeless people. Go do something. Go do something for somebody other than yourself. That's what we need more of. It's not these big. We don't need big grand ideas. Just get out and go do for somebody else who's not you, and stop thinking that this life is about you anyway. You didn't come to be served, but to serve. Serve the least of these. Get out there and do something.
Love it. Wow. I mean, I definitely triggered you on that one,
Yeah,
man.
you lit a match and threw some gas on it, Rory. How dare
Oh,
you?
hey, I love it. I got to be honest with you, man. You and I could talk about this for another hour. We really could. I would love to have you back on to talk about a couple other topics, later on if you're open for that. You don't have to commit now, but hey, the invitation's there, standing invite. So, yeah, Mart, I love everything you bring in. I love what you've done with your books. You got a fantastic story, and my goodness, are you motivational? I've heard people say they're motivational speakers before. I would love to come listen to you speak. I really would, because I'm pretty sure I'd leave there ready with like the Rocky Fourth theme song in my head. Just be ready to go tear it up. You really know how to bring the fire, man. You really do.
Well, I thank you for that, Rory. But I think that, and I've always wondered, like, when I come away from speaking, like, the entire back of my shirt is just completely soaked. Especially like when I have a suit on, like right now, like I can feel, like I'm probably gonna pull this shirt off, and it's just gonna be that big uh uh sweat spot in the back, and I already know I can feel it right now. But I think when I'm bringing up topics like this, and you led me on very well, I think that, like, I always think about, like, where did God bring me from to lead me here? And why did he choose me for a time like this? All the people more buttoned up, the ones who can quote 40 scriptures in a minute, right? Those people. Why did he choose a reckless person like myself to be somewhat of a spokesperson for young men and for young people all across the country, all across my state? How in the world did he choose a complete and utter train wreck like myself to do this? And so I think sometimes the extra in my voice and in my presentation comes from the fact of, man, there was so many times I know that I was supposed to not be here. All those reckless nights when I'm in a car under some kind of influence and I shouldn't have made it home from college to early adulthood and all those things. And it's just like, man, you brought me through all of that. And I think now he just wants me to take all of that and just pour it into. So when people hear me, this is this is not theatrics. Like, this is God delivered me from some really bad crap in my life. And I'm here. And it's like, I'm looking at a young man and saying, trust me, the path you're going on will not work. I've tried it not once, not twice, but several times. And I'm here to let you know that the sooner you can step away from that life and get into the glorious, magnificent life that God has for you, it's game on. You know, sorry it took me 30 plus years to figure this out, but here we are, right? He chose Paul after he had already been doing what he done. You know, Peter was a bit of a hothead, just a little bit. And God chooses these interesting, regular, flawed individuals to bring his message. And now I'm here and it's like, mm-mm. I want all my young people to surpass anything I could ever accomplish in my life 7 to 10 times over what I can ever do. I want all of them to be that much more successful than me. And I mean that because my job is to pour into them so that they can take what I've done and duplicate that over multiple times over. And then you pay it forward to the next young man when you turn 30, 40 years old. And you say, you know what? I see something in that 13-year-old. How about I go pour into him? Why? Because somebody did it for you. And somebody sacrificed for me to be able to be here, right? And God saw fit for me to still be here, to be on platforms like this and share with men on the other end who are just like, man, I'm glad someone's thinking or on the level of what I'm hearing from him, right? Again, I'm not special. I'm not special. I'm not unique in any kind of way. I'm just a man who's excited to be able to have the opportunity to share with the next generation. Because if we don't invest in our future generations, we don't have a future. And we're already on the verge of that right now. And as long as I'm still breathing, I'm going to do the best I can and give it all away. That's what I'm going to do.
Fantastic wrap up, brother. I got to be honest, just absolutely fantastic wrap up. How can people reach you?
AhmardVitale.com. You type in Ahmard Vital in a search engine and all sorts of ways to communicate with me. Obviously, now what has been out since the beginning of 2023. We're trying to get a big push going with that. It's a very, if you got any young people in your life who are really struggling right now, it really takes you on a step-by-step basis on how to get through things. There's multiple strategies per chapter to choose which one works best for you. It's the first time I actually put some biblical references in there as well. It's the first book where I actually did that. And so, I just want to be, I just want to be able to be a servant to those who need me. And if they, they put the Power of Man podcast on the in the subject line, if they want to send me an email at info@ahmardvital.com. They got some young people in their life who just like, man, going through a season, and it's just like you don't know what to do with them because I run into that all the time. Just shoot me a message over there. Put the name of this podcast in there. We'll set up a 30-minute talk with your young person and see if we can maybe get them out of the cave or maybe meet them down there and maybe bring them a match or a flashlight so that they can kind of start getting out of that dark place where they are. Because I know once you're surrounded by darkness and you don't no longer believe that you're salt and light of the world, um, that can be really hindering. And so if I can come down there and maybe throw a little gas and light a match under some young fellas, and I'm more than willing to do that. And I will definitely do that pro bono for your audience who need that and who have young people in their lives who are in need of a word right now. And
Appreciate it.
it's a lot of young men out there hurting, and I want to
Uh,
be there for them.
I appreciate that. I know that our listeners do too, man. Thank you for that offer. Um, all right, folks. Motivational speaker, ministry leader, coach, author of 3 books, and leading the way by absolutely being one of the first men through the wall for our young lions out there. Ahmard Vital, brother, thank you so much for coming on, for leading the way you are, and just for spreading the message that you're spreading because it's so badly needed. Thanks for being here, man.
Thank you, Roar, for having me on.
You got it. Folks, that's another powerful, hard-hitting episode of the Power Man podcast. And the reason we bring such powerful men on here like this with such powerful messages is because we are absolutely united in you finding your power so that you can be a better protector, better provider, better leader tomorrow than you are today. So that you can become a better father, a better husband, a better man tomorrow than you are today. And the reason that we want that for you is because you matter, you have value, and you're worth it. And at some point, you just have to believe it. Until next time.